Welcome everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. Lillian let Sam sit at his own dining table while she read text messages from the man she was sleeping with. Then she looked him in the face and told their children he was finally getting what he deserved. She did it calmly, like she was discussing whether, like 20 years of marriage, could be folded up and tossed away with the paper napkins after Sunday dinner. Their daughter wouldn't meet his eyes. Their son crossed his arms and stared at him like a stranger. Sam stood there in his socks on the hardwood floor of their house in Decatur, Georgia, and felt his whole life break without making a sound. Here's how it happened. Sam was not an innocent man, and that mattered. 15 years earlier, back when their kids were little and money was tighter than breath, he had cheated once during a rough stretch when he was angry, immature, and drunk on his own self-pity. Lillian found out, and the marriage almost died then. The only reason it didn't was because Sam stopped lying. He confessed everything, cut off the other woman, went to counseling, took the yelling, took the cold silence, took the shame, and spent years trying to become a better husband than the man he had been. He never asked Lillian to forget. He only asked for the chance to earn back trust. For a long time, it looked like he had. They rebuilt slowly in Atlanta area suburbs, in ordinary ways that don't make anybody clap. Sam packed lunches, learned how Lillian liked her tea, stayed up late helping the kids with algebra even when he barely remembered any math himself. He worked maintenance at a commercial property company, came home sore, and still rubbed Lillian's feet when she complained about standing all day at the hospital billing office. On good nights, she'd laugh at his corny jokes and lean against him on the couch. Their love didn't look shiny, but it looked durable. Sam believed that counted for something. Sam had flaws even after he changed. He could be stubborn, defensive, and too proud to say he was hurt until his feelings came out sideways. He sometimes mistook providing for loving, and he had a bad habit of thinking a problem could be fixed with overtime pay and grilled chicken on Sundays. Lillian used to tease him about having the emotional range of a folding chair. He would laugh and say, "A strong folding chair, though." That always got her. They had a running joke that if he ever wrote poetry, every line would end with "baby" because he had no other romantic vocabulary. She once kissed him for that. Some of their best years came after the ugliest one. There were Friday nights when they drove to a takeout spot on Memorial Drive and ate lemon pepper wings in the car because they didn't want to share with the kids. There was the time it rained on their anniversary picnic in Piedmont Park, and they ended up sitting in the truck, listening to old R&B, laughing while Sam tried to act like wet sandwich bread was part of the plan. On one birthday, he slow danced with Lillian in the kitchen while the smoke detector chirped because he had burned the salmon. "You ruined dinner beautifully," she told him, smiling into his chest. By the time the kids were grown enough to speak to their parents like equal-sized critics, Sam thought the worst was behind them. Their daughter Nia was in college outside Savannah. Their son Marcus was working part-time and taking classes at Georgia State. Sam had even started sleeping better, which for him was practically a miracle. Then Lillian changed in quiet ways. She started protecting her phone like it had state secrets on it. She worked late more often, came home with perfume that wasn't hers, and answered ordinary questions like they were accusations. Sam noticed, but he hated what suspicion had once done to their home. He told himself not to become that man again. He explained it away because men who have broken trust before don't always feel entitled to doubt anybody else. That was part guilt and part fear. If Lillian came home after 10 saying there had been end-of-month billing work, he nodded. If she showered as soon as she got in, he said nothing. If she smiled at her phone and set it face down when he entered the room, he looked away. Every strange thing had an explanation, he told himself. Hospitals were busy. People were stressed. Marriages changed. Besides, he knew what it was to be judged by your worst mistake. He refused to turn paranoia into punishment. The first real crack came from something stupid. Sam was on the couch half watching a basketball game, half asleep, when Lillian left her phone on the armrest and went upstairs. It buzzed once, then again. Sam reached for it only because he thought it might be Nia. The preview lit up the screen. "Can't stop thinking about last night. Wish you were still in my bed." There was no name, just a red heart and a local number. Sam stayed so long the screen went black. He didn't throw the phone. He didn't yell. He just sat there, hearing the refrigerator hum and his own pulse in his ears. When Lillian came back downstairs, she knew immediately. Not because he said anything, but because he was too still. Sam held the phone out with a hand that barely shook and asked, "Who is this?" That was all. One sentence. One chance. Lillian looked at the screen, then at him, and instead of shame, he saw irritation cross her face like he had interrupted her favorite show. "You went through my phone?" she asked. It was such a cheap move he almost laughed. "I saw a message," he said. "Who is this?" She folded her arms and said, "His name is Andre." "Now what?" Sam said later that what hurt most was not learning there was another man. It was how bored Lillian sounded saying his name. Like this had been old news in her spirit for a long time. He asked how long it had been going on. She said, "Long enough." He asked why. She said, "Because you're not the only one who gets to destroy a marriage and keep eating dinner like nothing happened." That cut deep because he had no defense ready for it. He had done wrong once. He had spent years paying for it. But in that moment she used his old sin like a forever pass for her new cruelty. Sam could have taken the insult if it had stayed between them. Instead, Lillian escalated. She called Marcus downstairs and told him, right there in the kitchen, that his father was acting crazy over a text because guilty men were always suspicious. Then she called Nia on speakerphone and said Sam had invaded her privacy and started a scene. Before Sam even found words, Lillian dropped the affair like a bomb with no tremor in her voice. "Yes, I've been seeing someone. And after what your father did to me years ago, I don't want to hear anything about it." She turned his woes chapter into a weapon and handed it to the children. Marcus was young enough to be harsh and old enough to think harshness was wisdom. He looked at Sam and said, "You cheated first, though." Nia, through the phone, said quietly, "Daddy, maybe this is just the consequence." Sam felt himself sway. Consequence. That word landed harder than any curse. He wanted to explain that repentance was not a coupon somebody could redeem forever. He wanted to say pain was still pain, even when you had once caused some. Instead, he looked at the faces of the people he had worked double shifts for, fixed bikes for, sat through fevers and graduations for, and realized they had already made him the villain again. That night Sam slept in the guest room. Though slept was generous. He mostly sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, staring at a laundry basket and thinking about all the ordinary things that suddenly seemed fake. The anniversary card Lillian had given him 2 months earlier. The grocery list on the refrigerator in her handwriting. The fact that she had still asked him to rub her shoulders while another man was in her messages. Around 2 in the morning, Marcus passed by and didn't stop. Sam almost called out to him, almost said, "I'm still your father." But the words felt too small for the hallway. The next few weeks were uglier than Sam could have imagined. Lillian didn't hide the affair anymore. She started leaving the house dressed softer, brighter, with perfume he had never bought her. When Sam asked for basic respect until they decided what to do, she laughed and said respect should have mattered to him sooner. Marcus grew colder. Nia stopped answering half his calls. Lillian's sister came over uninvited and announced from the living room that some men only understand humiliation. Sam stood there holding a trash bag full of old shirts he meant to donate and thought, a whole audience for my pain. Nobody defended him. Nobody even tried. Sam did not handle all of it well. He drank more than he should have for a month. Not enough to become lost, but enough to become dull. He snapped at Marcus over dainty dishes and immediately regretted it. He missed a morning meeting at work after sitting in his truck outside the house too long, trying to gather himself. He almost called an old female friend who had once made it very clear she would be available if his marriage ever collapsed, and the fact that he even considered it made him sick with himself. He deleted her number instead. That night he sat in his truck and cried so hard he got a nosebleed. The small mercy came from a man named Deacon Reese at Sam's church in Stone Mountain, who was funny in the dry, dangerous way older black men can be funny. Reese didn't offer speeches. He handed Sam a napkin after one particularly embarrassing cry and said, "Son, don't die in the house where they already buried you." Sam laughed despite himself, which made him snort tears, which made Reese laugh harder. For 5 minutes, on a church folding chair under bad fluorescent lights, Sam remembered that sorrow was not the only thing left in the world. Somebody could still look at his broken face and make room for breath. A week later, Sam moved out. Not dramatically. No police. No broken plates. He packed his clothes, his tools, 2 framed photos he couldn't bear to leave, and the cast-iron skillet his mother had given him before she died. Lillian watched from the doorway and said, "This is probably best." Sam wanted her to look haunted, but she looked relieved. That hurt more. He rented a small apartment in southwest Houston, Texas, after transferring within his company to help manage facilities for a new commercial site. He chose Houston because it was far enough to break routines and close enough to still feel like real life. Also, nobody there knew the worst thing he had ever done. Houston did not heal him quickly. Healing rarely arrives looking pretty. His apartment smelled faintly like bleach and old carpet. The air conditioner rattled like it was arguing with itself. He ate too many gas station breakfasts and spent evenings sitting on a second-hand couch that sighed louder than he did. Some nights he replayed everything until dawn. Other nights he felt nothing at all, which scared him more. But there was dignity in silence. Nobody in that apartment rolled their eyes when he walked into a room. Nobody used his past as tonight's entertainment. He could hurt in peace, and that turned out to be a beginning. Sam built a routine because routine was all he trusted. He got up early, walked a loop around the complex, made his coffee too strong, and listened to old soul music while ironing work shirts with military seriousness. He started therapy through his employer's benefits, and the first few sessions felt like paying somebody to watch him sweat. Then one afternoon he admitted out loud that part of what destroyed his marriage was not just the old cheating, but years of believing that being useful was the same as being emotionally present. That honesty cracked something open. He began learning how to name feelings before they turned into anger, silence, or escape. The funny parts of life came back first, almost rude in their timing. At a grocery store in 3rd Ward, Sam got into a mock argument with an older cashier because she claimed his peaches were too hard and he claimed he liked fruit with ambition. She laughed so loud the lady behind him joined in. At work, he accidentally sent a voice note meant for his therapist to a contractor, beginning with, "I think abandonment makes me crave control," and spent a full day wanting the earth to split open. The contractor texted back, "Same, big dog. Also, the roof estimate is attached." Sam laughed until his chest hurt. Months passed. Sam kept to himself, but not in the bitter way people mistake for strength. He simply got careful. He stopped telling his story to anybody who had not owned it. He saved money. He read at night instead of drinking. He took a community real estate investing course because one of the men at work mentioned commercial leases could make more sense than endless overtime. Sam almost didn't sign up. The old version of him would have talked himself out of it, saying people like him didn't pivot, they endured. But he went. He sat in the back with a notebook and learned how money behaved when emotion finally stopped driving the car. Meanwhile, the family he left behind stayed loyal to Lillian, at least on the surface. Marcus visited her often and texted Sam mostly when he needed something administrative, like help with insurance paperwork or tax forms. Nia remained polite but distant, as if too much warmth might count as betrayal. Lillian did not apologize, not once. She sent one message 6 months after Sam moved. "Andre is moving in. I need you to sign some documents." No greeting, no softness. Sam stayed at the screen, then signed what was necessary through his lawyer and went back to reviewing a property spreadsheet. It was not peace yet, but it was progress. Andre, from what Sam eventually learned, was exactly the kind of man who looks impressive from a distance and unstable up close. He dressed well, talked smooth, and had expensive taste on media money. He loved being seen with Lillian when things were easy. He loved her confidence, her beauty, the way she could cut a room with one sentence. But men who enjoy stolen intimacy are not always built for ordinary responsibility. Bills, moods, grown children, maintenance problems, and truth have a way of revealing character. Sam did not stalk their lives, but updates leaked through relatives and paperwork. He listened only enough to stay informed, not enough to reopen wounds. Sam's private success came like brickwork, one layer at a time. He partnered on a small commercial property deal with 2 men from his course, then another. He was cautious to the point of irritation, and for once that trait made him money instead of loneliness. Within 3 years, he had equity, steady income beyond his job, and the kind of savings account that lets a man exhale before opening bills. He never posted any of it. No motivational captions. No shiny level-up nonsense. He bought a better apartment, then a modest townhome in Missouri City, and filled it with good lamps, clean lines, and quiet. His success felt intimate, not performative. The romantic part returned when Sam was no longer hunting for rescue. He met Dana at a bookstore cafe in Houston after reaching for the same James Baldwin collection and joking that Baldwin probably would have judged both their life choices. Dana laughed with her whole face. She was a middle school counselor, sharp-eyed and patient, with the kind of calm that didn't feel sleepy. Sam told her early that he had been a bad husband once, then a betrayed husband later, and was still learning how to be a healthy man in the middle of both truths. Dana appreciated honesty more than polish. Their first dates were simple, and that simplicity felt almost holy. With Dana, romance looked different from youth. It was less fireworks, more warmth. She came over one evening and found Sam trying to cook shrimp and grits while pretending he did not need the recipe video paused every 20 seconds. "You season like a man who feeds joy," she told him, taking the paprika from his hand. He nearly proposed on seasoning advice alone. They danced in the kitchen to Maze on a Wednesday for no reason at all. She listened without trying to edit his pain into a lesson too quickly. He listened when she talked about exhausted children and impossible parents. There was tenderness there, but also humor, and humor made tenderness easier to trust. Karma arrived for Lillian without thunder, which made it more real. Andre left when debt tightened around the house and the charm of rebellion turned into overdue notices, car repairs, and real domestic strain. He had talked big about building a new life with her, but the first-time sacrifice required him to give up comfort. He disappeared into excuses. Around the same time, Marcus learned that Lillian had lied to both children for years about key details of the affair timeline. She had started it long before Sam ever grew suspicious. Worse, she had borrowed money from Marcus under false pretenses while funding weekends away with Andre. The betrayal widened. Nia was the one who finally called Sam with the truth cracked open in her voice. She had found messages, dates, bank records, enough evidence to see that their mother had manipulated them with half-truths and old wounds. "Daddy," she said, crying now, "I was wrong about you." Sam sat on his patio, looking at the Texas evening, and closed his eyes. He did not rush to comfort her by pretending the lost years meant nothing. He told her he loved her, that what happened mattered, and that healing would take honesty from everybody. It was the hardest grown man conversation he had ever had, because forgiveness without truth is just denial wearing church clothes. Lillian still never apologized. Not when Marcus moved out in anger. Not when Nia stopped answering her calls for a season. Not when the house had to be sold because keeping it alone became impossible. Pride held her upright even as consequences stripped away her audience, her romance, and the certainty that she had been justified. Sam heard all this from a distance and felt something surprising. Not triumph, exactly, but release. The life she chose had finally answered for itself. He did not need to punish her. Reality had done cleaner work than revenge ever could. By then he was sitting across from Dana at dinner, laughing over burnt cornbread and future travel plans. Years after that awful night in Decatur, Sam understood the moral with more humility than bitterness. Wrong does not cancel wrong. A person can fail deeply, repent sincerely, and still be wounded later by people who use the old version of him as permission for fresh cruelty. But another truth stood beside it. Pain does not have to be your final address. Sam became a better man not because suffering made him noble, but because he stopped running from truth, including the ugly truths about himself. He learned that love without honesty rots, revenge never heals, and private peace is sometimes the richest victory God lets a person keep. All right, y'all. If this story had you stressed, smiling, or side-eyeing your own dinner table, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. That way, next time karma pulls up with a plate, you won't miss a single bite.